Hello, we're back again. Again, people must be sick of looking at us now, but we're back with a special. We have tonight. We're not going to actually play the Loaded Zebra. People are familiar with the Loaded Zebra. We're not going to play the Loaded Zebra. We have the next best thing. We have one half of the Zebra tonight. Unfortunately, the second half, Ben Jacobs couldn't make it. He's still recovering from holidays after the Olympics. So we have the main part of the Zebra, and this is the Zebra I'm talking about. For anyone that's new to our show, let's bring on Sir Keith of Durham and Newcastle. Welcome, Keith.
Hi lads, how are you doing? Good to see you.
We're all good, mate. All good, all good. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Right, lads. I think we're going to get straight in because there's lots of questions. Twitter was bopping today, and this is what Keith goes through every day, so I do feel sorry for him. Loads of questions. So I'm sure the chat is going to be full. So I want to kick it off. I want to kick it off with something that I have prepared here, and let's go for a loaded question. So you ready, Keith?
Yeah, fire away.
Start it off. So the cat case is in the court, but as we know, and we definitely know, there's been one or two delays and doubts due to those delays. Can you update us, in your own opinion, what's happening, where without any change it's heading, and who could influence a takeover by delivering change?
Yeah. I think I've got a couple hours. Right. Let's try and do it. So I've made a couple of notes there. First thing I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of background. So a year ago, I wrote Richard Masters and told him that I thought there's a cartel operating in English football. And this will probably tell you what's happening in a minute. I told him there's a cartel. I named 6 clubs I thought that formed that cartel. And those 6 clubs ultimately came out 6 months later as part of the ESL. My target back then, was to get, I knew it was anti-competitive what was going on. He didn't answer us. I contacted the CMA, which a lot of people are talking about contacting now. I contacted the CMA, and they passed us on to the Minister of Sport. Our QC said the CMA were wrong to pass us to the Minister of Sport, and he said they should take this case on. So what I did was, at the time there was 2 of us in NCSL, myself and Gordon Steen, who were active, and we went and sought legal advice, employed a QC, and I went and met the club and met their legal people and told them why I believed the only way we would ever get this takeover was if a competition action was taken. And I didn't believe that in an OTT arbitration, they had the mechanism or the tools to get the disclosure you would need to prove this anti-competitive behaviour. And I said I thought it would only be done. I met the club, their legal teams, and sold what I thought. And I pestered them from October last year through to April this year before we got the case ran. When the case ran, I thought that it was job done. I thought there was nothing else to do because, I thought once it was running in court with money behind it, that's all we needed. And that is where I want to start. Now, since then, you all know what's happened. You all know that since then there's been delays, and you know that the last round of delays came out when the club agreed to move the arbitration to inverted commas early 2022. So then we all thought that meant that the competition case was being pushed forward. And then we've learned now that on 27th of September, that case can be heard on jurisdiction to find out whether it can run or not. So that's why there's delay and there's doubts. I don't mind telling you what night the doubts started, because I was with Pete that night when all the doubts started. I met him in a pub in Rotherham, and that's where the doubts started. It came from a phone call that I got in the car in the presence of a reporter and a managing director of a Newcastle company. And those 2 people heard them calls, and that's where the doubts came. So where's it at the minute? We believe that the club deliberately delayed it at first until we spoke to them, and then we found out the club weren't the party that wanted to delay the arbitration. So they did want it to run in July, but they felt they had no option. They felt they had no option, and it was delayed by the Premier League because the Premier League wanted to delay it, and they weren't forthcoming with information. So that's the truth of where it is now. The disappointing thing for us is that the dialogue we've had with both sides is that there was a joint statement put out by the club, which went alongside what the Premier League saw. And from quite a, let's say, how would you describe the club's relationship with the EPL at the time? It seemed as though it was not too rosy, but from that statement, it sounded like a joint statement. It seemed as though that statement was saying that we jointly aren't going to talk to anybody, and that we're both going to, let this case run in early 2022. It's my understanding, and those close, that was done without the agreement of the buyer, and that's where some of the confusion comes in, because when you've got a buyer, it's one of the richest companies in the world, and when you've got a takeover where people have been patient for the best part of 14 months, if there's a hold up, the first thing you would have thought you would do is go and tell the buyer what you're doing. And it appears that didn't happen. And I think that's where a lot of the doubts have come in. It could be that the club weren't allowed to liaise with anybody on that, but it's clear that the buyers aren't a party to these delays, and it's clear that there's a lot of nervousness as whether PIF will stay around. There's been some press out today that people say PIF have agreed to stay the duration and agree the same price. That's total tosh. If anybody's telling you that, they're making it up. The buyers and the sellers have been spoken to, and that's not their understanding. So when you get people doing this, the guesswork, it's like a guess brigade on Twitter, it goes mad. And when that happens, I just switch off. I just switch your computer off and I go out and do something more purposeful. Because it's one thing to guess, and it's everybody's right to have a guess of what might happen. But if you put that guess out as fact and say it's come from information, then it's misleading the fan base. And some people have criticised me, even today before I come to the show, saying that I'm not as confident as I was. But I said, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to tell it as it is and tell you everything I know that I'm legally allowed to tell you? Or do you want us to kid you on? Because, I'm a fan. I'm a football fan. I went to the game on Sunday and I was as disappointed as the next bloke. I never heard one anti-EPL chant or objection the time I was there. And I heard one anti-Mike Ashley chant during the game. So it was disappointing because Ashley's agreed to sell and we need him to stay on board till he sells the club. But and Mitch is one of my pals on the Matty show. He said to me, he said, you're the first bloke that's kept the door open for Ashley, because that's what I'm doing, holding the door and say, look, can we help you out? You don't want to sell the club, can we let you get out of the club? So for me, it's wasted energy, because it's only worthwhile criticising him if he says, I'm not selling the club, or if he takes off the market. If he does that, then it's fair play. Fans can do what they want. But why is he agreeing to sell? Why we've got a problem with a corrupt Premier League and a cartel that's in operation? Should be God, our action should be against them. So for me, on that time, I just believed that it was. I went to the game thinking, I'm going to take in what happens here, and I thought there might be airplanes flying over. I thought there'd be banners. I thought there'd be a lot of singing, and the atmosphere in the first half was good because we got off to a good start. And it was lively, but I was really, really surprised there was nothing against the EPL. They're the enemy. They're the people who's holding this up. And it's been hampered by a cartel of 6 companies, and it's been hampered by one of their biggest funders, one of the people who puts the most money in the Premier League bandwagon. And then you all know who they are. They have the rights for many TV stations, and I've seen evidence that they've been lobbying to stop this takeover going through, and it's illegal. And I've given that to QC, who says it's illegal what they've done. I've also seen evidence where one of their legal team have said they don't think there's anything wrong with that. And the QC I spoke to say there's something massively wrong with it. So there's no doubts that there is legitimate evidence that can bring these people down. But to go back to the first part of your question, what's happening? The Premier League use a company called Two Birds, Bird and Bird. I've had 5 letters off them so far. I got the last letter on the 23rd of December. When Gordon and I were together, we got on the 4:45 on the 23rd of December, the last night Masters and Hoffman worked. They sent me a letter from their solicitors with lots of threats at 4:45 at night, which was obviously to upset our Christmas. I mean, it actually made my Christmas because it confirmed to me what a pain in the arse it was. And it confirmed to me that NCSL were getting to them. But since we passed the case over the club, NCSL don't have the voice that they used to have, because now we've got to rely on the club doing that. And if the club are running a case, where is the CAT case at? On the 27th of December, the call that I took before I met you, Pete, was with the QC. It worked for me. And what I said to him, I said, if you will represent the other side, and this was going into court on the 27th of December September for a jurisdiction, what would you do? And he says, the obvious route is to appeal. And I says, now, how long can that put on? He says, a year. When he said that, Liam and Steve immediately just turned around and said, well, it's not going to happen. And the main thing is, the general feeling was that PIF wouldn't wait another year from September the 27th. So what do you want me to do then? Do you want me to turn around and say, it's all right, that's going to happen? Or do you want us to just be straight with you? And what I've done all along in this is been mega straight and just said, you know, like it needs something else. And that's what I want to come on to tonight, is you know, that question you just said there. I was told somebody else would ask us that today. I was talking on Twitter, but you've actually asked it straight away. You said, what can we do to change that? So, first of all, the delays are caused by the Premier League's intent. If you remember, I tried to take the Premier League to court out of our own funds, and they wrote to us and said, we'll never expedite what you're doing. We'll never, ever give you expediency to get this case run quickly. So they've actually wrote to me and said they won't do it quickly. They've also said to me, we won't do yours before the club's case. So I was always at the back of the queue, and I could never get past the club. That's why I had to go and talk to the club and say, well, you know, you going first, will you do it? And that's why I think there's another action that could be taken. So that's the delay. Bird & Bird are very, very efficient, top legal firm, and they're extremely efficient and are renowned for procrastinating and for being able to delay things. And it's their role. It's their role to do that. And we believe that the Premier League, Amanda told you this, had been got at by other clubs in the Big Six. There was some that stood out, and we found information on them. We challenged them, and it didn't get defended. But some of those Big Six clubs, we believe, are asking the Premier League to keep PIF away from investing in Newcastle. Reason being is some of those clubs are threatened. If the ESL was only 5 British clubs, they would probably not get the 6th spot. So there's a couple of clubs who are nervous of where they stand in that, and we believe that they don't want Newcastle in. Why do they not want Newcastle in? Oh,
it's their sandwich, Martin.
Somebody's getting fed. Go so.
It's my food delivery. Normally when I watch you, you're normally nibbling away on something, Keith. So
I
said I'll get my dinner late tonight. Yeah.
You do it. So
we'll mute you while you're eating, Martin.
But if you ask us any more questions like this first one, might do it, you'll be able to eat that and get a sweet. But so what happened is Bird & Bird are experts at delaying, right? So what's happening, and we'll try to. What do I think will happen without change? I think they will delay it and possibly make an appeal. It's not common to appeal, and I think there's a way to make that harder as well. I think there's a way to make it harder for them. I've spoken to QCs, competition law QCs, who say they don't think they'll succeed with winning the jurisdiction argument. They don't think the Premier League will succeed. They think the case will run, but they think that there's a chance that it might appeal, which will knock it back at the long grass again. So if Bird & Bird are instructed to delay it, you then got to ask the question why. Why would the Premier League even apply for jurisdiction? If the Premier League have got a solid case, why don't they just turn around and say, I'll tell you what, we'll run this. We're getting bad press up at Newcastle. But think about it, man. Think about it. First televised game at Newcastle on a Sunday, cameras everywhere, not a mention. So it's okay coming on Twitter and saying, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll not give up. But for me, I heard everything that was going to be a West Ham game. Next game, probably can do it, is Southampton, 28th of August, but I don't think it's televised. Not sure if it is, but for me, there's still opportunities out there. And I believe that the fact that the EPL are spending, and it is millions they're spending now on legals, to delay this speaks a volume of how they can't defend the competition action, how they're not ready for the arbitration, otherwise they would have run that in July, and how they are nervous of disclosure. And I think alongside that, I think the other people would be nervous of disclosure is the Big Six, because there's 3 parts that's going to come out if this case runs in September. There's 3 things that will come out. You can go after the Premier League to say you've abused your dominant position, i.e. you've been in charge of 20 clubs and you prevented investment into one of those clubs. You haven't given them the same deal. For example, you give Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace didn't nominate their directors. They run under a separate guise and did a Delaware company, and that doesn't specify who it is. So dominance, abuse of dominance is a big thing that the Premier League have to be aware of. The second thing they could do is you're not allowed to collective lobby. So nobody's allowed to send out a memo or a text or a WhatsApp saying, I don't think we should let them people buy Burnley. I think we should stop that. The minute you say, even if you think it, or even if you say somebody was thinking something negative, that is sufficient to be guilty. If you type it, you write it, or you get caught saying it, then you're banned guilty of anti-competitive behaviour. You're banned guilty of cartel action, which is illegal in the EU and in the UK. And if somebody has lobbied some of those clubs, which we have got a copy of the letter, and if somebody confirms they've lobbied somebody, which we have a copy of a letter confirming it's gone out, then that in itself is enough to win a competition case. The third thing you would get is something called collusion. This is key, this. Collusion is the big thing. Ask you a question. If you collude, it means you talk to people, and you're not allowed to collude with people you compete with, because it's anti-competitive. Logic. So how could Man United and Liverpool and Arsenal, all American-owned, decide who was going in the ESL? Who decided Newcastle weren't going in? And who decided Burnley weren't going in? Who decided last year that Sheffield United weren't going in? They must have colluded to say, 6 will do it. And they must have decided the name. They must have had meetings with Real Madrid and Barcelona. They must have all got together in some room with cigars and said, this is the plan, lads. Because I've heard things where they won't have to compete for relegation. Once you're in that ESL founder group, you can never get relegated. People can get promoted into it, but then you can get relegated out. But the founder members can't. Who decided that? And when was it decided? And did they write it down? But only just talking about it is a criminal offence. So there's 3 main stays on competition law. In the same way that you've got to ask why did the Premier League constantly stop this action going through because they're nervous of it, you want to ask another question. Why is it I'm like a magnet to solicitors with no competition action experience? Why do solicitors, there's about 5 or 6 at the moment, they're all out there on the Twitter, and you all know them well, and yet they've got a habit where they glue to me. Every time I speak, they're straight on everything I say, and they put stuff out. I know some of them have spoken to people I know and they've confirmed they don't want this takeover. But anybody that would try and stop a single fan from trying to get a takeover that 97 to 99% of people want are playing the cards and say, well, I don't want this takeover. And what they do is the 5 or 6 solicitors that do this are all from backgrounds. I'm not saying they're not good at what they do. I'm just saying that none of them is any good at competition law because none of them work in the competition industry. They've all been checked out. The QCs and barristers, the lawyers that work on this competition action have looked at them and said they don't know what they're talking about. But what they do is they get an audience, they get Newcastle fans to say, oh, well, he's a solicitor, so he'll know. I'll tell you what, I'll just put that in a language so everybody follows. Let's suppose you've got a joiner. He works for Newcastle Council, and he's a good joiner. and he sees a nice chair that's being carved by a carpenter. Let's suppose it's a Chippendale, and Chippendale's still alive. He says, "Oh, Chippendale, that leg's wonky." Does that make him right? And just because he criticises the work of a carpenter, that doesn't make the joiner a carpenter. It just makes him an idiot who's talking about something he doesn't know anything about. And that's what's happening with these lawyers. They work in things like conveyancing. And one works in the sex industry, I'm told. And then they start talking about competition law, which is a field all of its own. And the QCs at the very top of that game, like the shearers of the competition law, they say, "Keith, ignore them. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about." One last week said that the cat case wouldn't impact a takeover. So let's just go over that one. Let's suppose you prove that the Big Six have deliberately discriminated against Newcastle United and stopped the takeover, which is against the law, and they'll be fined, charged, and brought to court. And the Premier League have condoned that. You're saying that wouldn't affect the takeover. I'd say it'll crash the whole takeover application, and it'll be done behind closed doors. That's what I say will happen. And that's what the lawyers say would happen. But according to some lawyer who isn't in the legal 500, as a solicitor, he's telling someone in QC, top end of the game, who is in the legal 500, and he's in the top 5 competition QCs in the country. And he's actually admitted in his blog is the best competition practice in Britain. He's telling the top QC out of that practice that it wouldn't impact it. Well, the QC has said, yes, it will impact it. So now, after all that, we've got to say, how do we get this into court? And how you can change it, guys, I think, is by getting somebody to attach themselves to the action. So if I talk too quick, or if I'm losing people off, just tell us, slow us down or stop us. But I think you could change this by doing two things. I think the fans could come out and protest and get this to become a matter of public interest. I think it's quite easy. Chelsea did it, and Man United did it, and they made national television by protesting. The problem is we didn't have one person protesting the weekend. They had 5,000 to 10,000 people protesting. That's the difference. So whatever was happening with the ESL antagonised Man United and Chelsea enough for them to act and do something. And I'm not for a minute saying go and do what Man United did and break the law and all this. What I am saying is Chelsea just did a protest. They just protested, but they did it in massive numbers. And it needed proper policing, it needed proper control. So again, if you do anything, it's got to be done orderly, it's got to be done properly. But there is a way to get it national. We spend more time with Newcastle fans complaining about press not following us than what we do trying to put something together in the unit. We're so fragmented, we all arguing against each other that we never ever get together and get an effort that will make national television. Because there's times when
that's the point I was going to say there. You raised a good point, Keith, about the first match of the season. Now I'd be obviously me and Daz both live in Ireland, so we don't get to go to the games. But I was expecting to see at least some format of noise against the EPL, a banner or something else. And I think Steve Wraith made a good point on one of the shows I watched. He said, the Newcastle fan base has always been divided, and trying to get them to come together is like trying to, fill a bag with cats. It's near impossible trying to get them in and get them done. But at this point, we're kind of at a stalemate. We're waiting for the anti-competition piece in September. Everybody, well, certainly 99% of people want Mike Ashley gone, and he also wants to be gone. What is it going to take for this fan base to finally break, I suppose, in full and some format of a protest? Is it going to be, 10 bad results with Bruce at the helm? Or what do you think is going to pull the fan base together? Or do you think it's a non-starter trying to get them together? Because it seems an impossible task.
I think, it's a brilliant question. I think that the fan base is so fragmented and there's so many people. I mean, there's some, it's been an experience to me. I mean, I'm one bloke just sitting on my own now, since the last 6 months, it's just been me doing it. And God bless him, he did the right thing. He went back to work. I wish I'd gone with him. And for me, I've been shocked at how much, because I was talking to Darren today, how much Darren, like because we were talking whether it's 97 or 99% support for this.
That's right.
And I don't think there's ever been a bigger support for a takeover football club ever. You know,
No.
one of you asked us today, did you watch that? Did you watch that? Like Talk Sport thing today which we'll come on to later with the new potential owners of West Ham, and you know, like West Ham hate their owners and are determined to change them. But I don't think for a minute that them new owners who used to own the what they used to own the O2 or used to run the O2. I don't think for a minute they'll get 75 or 80% kind of buy-in. This consortium's got 97 and 99. And you know, I was approached at one stage by another buyer, and his biggest frustration was that he couldn't get the Newcastle fan base to support what he was trying to do. And you know, I talked to him for nearly 2 hours once about that and tell them why the fan base back this. But having said that, 97 to 99% back this. By God, the 1% don't have make some noise, don't they? You know, think of all the crap they dish out, and think of all the negatives they're doing where they've got solicitors who don't want to see it, so they're putting all the legal points together, which they don't know any. And you look at it and just think, what is this all about? But for me, it's I tell you, people say to me, you know, you're not as confident, or it's definitely dead. If it was dead, I promise you, I'm gone. If it was dead, I'm gone. And is it going to happen? I think it's less likely to happen if things don't change. I think if we don't change something quick. So what has to change? I think it would need something like the buyers to come out and say, we've lost 14 or 17 million and we want to recover it. And we lost it through discriminatory manners, people colluding, and we think there's a cartel out there. And that would be very, very simple. Very simple. You can run a court case tomorrow on that basis, and you get your legal team, in essence, to turn around to that body and say, we're challenging you, and I want to see every letter sent by Tottenham, Liverpool, and Man United that went to the EPL during those dates that mentioned Takeover, Consortium, or PCP, or PIF. Now, every time either party communicated, whether it's by text, phone, WhatsApp, email, letter, anything, scribbled notes, the lot, even the writing notes you've got on your desk. If that was to happen, you'd get disclosure. But when you ask those questions, then people who know they've been taught about that and know that they've made representations to stop this takeover at any cost, just like Behind Sports did, they will say, whoa, you can't let that run. You can't let that run. You're going to have to stop that running. And that's the idea. Now, so first of all, there's a competition action being run by the club. That's in the realms. I think it's got less chance of getting thrown out or delayed if another party attaches to that. So it's normal in competition actions that another party that's been affected and can prove they've got loss comes out and attaches them to that claim. So it's well within the realms for a buyer to come out and say, well, we're not going to lose 14 million just because of this anti-competitive behaviour. We'll join your claim. That's normal. That's a very, very normal practice. If that happened, it then brings question as to whether this is just a Newcastle takeover issue or whether other people have been duly affected and whether they've been brought out. So then, if they attach it, and the third thing, which I think would be big, is if fans got together and we could easily, it's like we did with the Save Our Seats at Newcastle, we nominated 6 strong cases to take on the club. And you could nominate 6 people. One of them I'll give you, Mickey Edmondson, who's got 2 shops, 2 huge shops, the back page. Are you telling me that his takeover won't be halved under Ashley as what would be under PIF? Of course it would. And he would prove that very easily. And he'd be able to prove with figures that since his takeover's gone on, how bad the figures of trade now. People who run bars in Newcastle will be able to prove turnover on match days is down. There's people who've got hotels. So it'd be very, very easy to get a class mass action and do that. When you do that, you then create something called a matter of public interest. And when it's a matter of public interest, the whole court procedure will try and expedite the case. because the public are being affected financially. A company's being accused by company A, company B, and the general public, and then they try and run the case. It's less likely that will get thrown out. And if that happened, that would be probably a way to do it. Somebody said to me, what would it cost? And, you know, like if you're going to, this was going to appoint the QC I use and said, can we use all of NCL's action? I think he could attach a claim on behalf of the fans, probably for 100K. You know, that's the kind of area. The problem would come when the Premier League would then say, well, what happens if we lose? He's got our costs to pay. But there'll be three parties involved at that stage. And I'm sure that the club and the buyers would agree to cover the costs. So the fans are all what they did. And you talk about 100 grand, you say, well, how much is 100 grand? It's 10,000 fans, the kind of amount that lobbied against Chelsea, sticking the tenner in the box. That's what we're talking about. And if you want to talk about what's valuable, and I'm on here tonight just to tell the truth. I'm not here to win friends, and I'm not here to tell lies. But there's been $250,000 collected to buy 1% of this club. So that's 40% of that pot. 40% of that pot to buy 1% of the club. Why do you want 1% in Newcastle under Mike Ashley? That's the first question I'm going to ask. Why would you want 1% of this club? And what would you get if you had 1%? And secondly, I've spoken to the club and they said they wouldn't sell them 1%. So what is that? Is that money that's just going to charity? Or could 40% of that money already collected not serve a purpose of bringing an action that would deliver a takeover, or that would absolutely make a takeover very likely? For me, if you ask the fan base in the trust what they want, I think the fan base would turn around and say, we want to put 40% into that. If you ask the people who run it, I think you might get a different answer. And that's because I just listen to people. I don't know everybody, but I'm a good listener. And I don't think the people who run the trust have been active in wanting the takeover to happen. So that could change. That could change with the new people. They could, the new people could make a move. But you said earlier, what we could do next, and you said we might need 10 games before we get fans to start rebelling and start running a protest. I think it's too long. I think it's too late. Yeah. I don't know what 10 games is, but I imagine 10 games is Christmas, or
not far off.
October.
So around the November point of view, but we don't need to wait that long to get our voices heard with regards to the situation. We've known this now from the summer. So for us, I mean, for me, this is me just throwing something out there. It doesn't even necessarily have to be at St James's Park. Where you probably get the maximum exposures when we play one of the top six. And very soon we play Man United at Old Trafford. That's likely, and it's not been decided yet, is going to be made for TV, possibly even BT Sport. That, for me, is the perfect opportunity at one of the top six, right, to get your voices heard with the away fans, to make that point clear, whether it's banners, whether it's protesting, make your voices clear and heard, not just to Newcastle fans, but to fans of oppositions of the Premier League. That, for me, is just something to just throw out there as a potential opportunity. It's round the corner. Right? It's time to still put something together, and it makes the point very, very clear.
I think it's a brilliant point, Pete, and I don't disagree. But to me, I've spoken to Dean, who's started to do the protest. The problem with this club now, because it's been divide and conquer, because that's the way people have kept control of the club. And what they've done is they've fed few people. There's some organisations think they're the only people who are allowed to talk the club. They think there's only one group who go talk the club. Well, they're not talking the minute. They don't talk the club the minute, and I have been. So that's not true, is it? So for me, I think everybody should be able to talk the club. And I think what we need is, we need a group of people, representatives. And I think people like yourselves, I think you three lads, I think the people off the Matters group, I think you'd like to Liam Kennedy, I think like the Flags people, I think you're talking about other fanzines. I think as many groups as you can get, because they all know each other, and from times to times they have worked together. And people like when you listen to people like Steve Hasty, he's got a wealth I mean, Steve Wright's doing a group of shows about the history of all this protesting over the years. He's going to send out next week. And when you listen to that, you think, Jesus Christ, there's so many people have tried their hearts out to make something happen, and it hasn't happened. And we 14 years down the line, and somebody said to me on Tuesday, well, I'm actually out. Where's that got you, like? Where has that got you? Because give Mike Ashley one bit of credit. He knows how to make money, and he knows how to deflect criticism. He's not bothered. And 14 years proves that. So for me, I have zero interest in going singing that. You know what I mean? The day we go back to singing that's the day when this is well and truly over. I don't think this is over by any means. But I think that if we let the club go into that action, and I've just had a text of a pal, Rob Bailey's just sent to me there, Keith, you should run a GoFundMe page. The thing is, it won't be me that runs it. I mean, I'll give all the knowledge. I'll sit, I'll help, I'll get involved, and I'll show you how to get the legal argument. I'll get the legal argument dressed up for you in record time and show you how to win the case. But it needs people to come together like we've talked about and run a GoFundMe page and put a group in, because it's so easy. You know, there's people who don't know what they're talking about, say, oh, so-and-so hasn't got standing. Let's just tell you what standing means. Standing means loss. So what they say is Keith Patterson wouldn't win a case because he hasn't got loss. How does them people know what losses I've suffered as a result of this? But let's tell you, any football fan that had a season ticket at Newcastle who didn't get the money back as soon as they should have got, they've got loss. Any fan, any employee who worked in Newcastle United's ground who got furloughed, Amanda said she wouldn't have furloughed them. She'll say that on oath. They've got standing. Steve Wright runs a Newcastle Legends company. How many gigs have you had? Or would you get more? You've got loss. You lot on this show will earn more if PIF take over. Your show figures will go up. So all you people will determine. Any guy that sells sports gear in the ground, any guy that sells memorabilia, anybody connected with this football club that will benefit under PIF and have been held back through illegal behaviour by the EPL would gain by doing this. My experience is, I'm just an ordinary bloke. I'm working in business. Like I'm getting on. So I haven't got the energy to I've got the passion, but I haven't got the energy to start from scratch and start raising money. But I would help people. I know how to do it, and I've done it, and I'll show people how to do it. I can build you a court case. I can get you all the evidence you need. I can get the top QC straight in. He's already up to speed. He knows the case back to front. It was him who sold it to the club with me. So we can do all that. But for me, I think you need to get... there was a lad on screen there now, so there's my £10. Now, I don't think this is hard to do, but there's actually a ready-made fund where 97% of people in that organisation said, I want to get involved with a takeover, and they carry in £250,000. Why do they put 100,000 at QC, get all the fans to get involved in this case now and join the action with the club? And then why don't they go and say, look, we're doing it, and we'll approach the buyers and say, will you come as well? But I'll tell you something, if you put a buyer and a seller and the public in this case, by God, it gets national recognition there. When the competition action runs, that's how you'll get your recognition. And that's when you'll get your people all buying the tickets. What allocation they get, Man United, where they'll all take cards into the ground, where they'll take banners and they'll sing for 90 minutes against the EPL, against Man United, as Pete says. That's how to do it. But I'll tell you what, it's not how to do it, is to sit there and say, well, I never heard out on Sunday. Because when people said to me, I said, did you do out? See, I got asked. I went up the ground on Sunday to meet some people that were going to do things, and I did meet them, and I had a beer with them afterwards. And I said to them, look, I'll help you, but I won't run it. It's not me and Keith Patterson's name. I've had enough crap for trying to run a competition action. And the day I got my competition action to court was the day that I felt I'd done my bit. And I just want to see it run. But I don't want to run the protest, but I'll help. If that makes it clear. Have I answered that first question? Because I'm going to be here next Sunday.
Yeah, that must be a record. That's 39 minutes. That has to be a record. You've got a question.
Really sorry. I'm sorry.
You just want to say that you broke Ben Jacobs' record, 41 minutes, Keith, the new world record.
I'll have broken another record because I'll have actually said something that made sense as well.
Pete, I just wanted to rewind a little bit because there was an interesting point you were talking about. And I think a lot of fans, particularly those watching as well at the moment will agree that, you know, you talked about Bird and their, you know, their procrastination and delaying tactics that have been going on for so long, all the way through this process, and it's been frustrating for us all. Is there, in your opinion, is there a point in which, with whether it's the CAT case or whether it's the arbitration, where the delaying tactics stop, where there's nowhere for them to hide, and where it's up front and centre, where everything's on the table? Is there a point, and if there is, what point do you think that is?
If in September 27th, the challenge to the jurisdiction gets thrown out, at that point, the panel will then start putting dates together, and they will start saying, right, what we're going to do now, they'll start listing, they'll go through a directions hearing, and they'll start listing. The only thing that I fear can stop that is a appeal. But I believe if we get smarter than that, because I don't want to lose this. You know, I've given a year of my life of doing this. It's cost us a mega amount of money. It cost us a relationship. It's cost us like time, a year with no wages, and it's cost us more crap than I ever thought existed. I didn't believe you get so much horseshit on a social media channel, and so now, you know, the day this is over, I'll put wings on and fly away from Twitter, because it's like people go, what have you done? You've only done one. Like, it must have been a good one. Must have been a good one because it got a competition actually in the court. So it stops when the Premier League either don't appeal or can't appeal. And the information I've got, I cannot vouch for this. You know, people's going to have to do their own checks. But I've been told that if another party attached it, like the buyers, and said, we've lost £40 million, we take you on, and then a public action started, mass action by us fans, it then becomes a matter of public interest. And I don't think you could appeal that for a year, because I think the jurisdiction is going to come along the lines of the club cannot run this, because I think this will be their argument, because when they signed up to become a member of the Premier League, right, they agreed to sort out any disputes via the ODT system and via arbitration. So I believe that's a clause. I don't know, but I get educated by legal people. They say that's what they think's coming. Now, they didn't tell the fans that. So if some fans sitting there with these, you know, somebody's just put up on screen to say the Newcastle Council are an obvious claimant, a massive claimant, and would get hellish backing from the people in Newcastle. You know, could you imagine how easy it would be to get them to join the action? Says then Newcastle would have standing for the loss of development opportunity in the city. Of course they would. Very easily proved. And you know, I could get a QC I could ring him tomorrow at 10:15, and at 10:20, I would know whether Newcastle Council had massive standing up. That's how quick it is. They'll tell you how to get, you know, how a person has or has not got standing. So you could easily put an action together on the people. My belief, to Pete's question, is if you've got the belief and the backing from the general public of Newcastle, my belief is that those people would take away the right for them to appeal against the club, because they'd say, hold on a minute, you're trying to appeal whether the club can run it, but the general public are running it now, and it would get thrown out. So you've just asked Peter, do I think it could be done? I think if the club got together with the buyer and the fans, and there's a mechanism to do that. The club can make 2 phone calls, and there is a triangle that could speak very quickly. And I think you could control this case again. I think when you did that, Pete, once you did that, I firmly believe it's advantage takeover. And so what I'm not going to do is come on this set. I'm not going to mislead fans. A lot of people say, "Oh, come on tonight, Keith, talk to you." And I said, well, I'm going to talk straight. I did this on Al Waleed's show the other week. I went on there and had a great time with him and Stuart Penman, and really enjoyed it. And when we do Matty's show, it's like mates in the pub, they'll be pals. And when on Al Waleed's show, they fired us up, and I was chilled up by the end of it, because they wanted to ask us all the questions that they never asked us because I for whatever reason, I hadn't been on before. I've only been on 2 other shows than the Fab Four, and that's this one tonight and that one, albeit I've been asked to go on 5 or 6 of the shows. I just want to get over tonight that if we keep whinging about not doing anything, and if we keep feeling sorry for ourselves and saying, wow, why won't Sky watch it? And I'll tell you what, our fans have written... I'm going to tell you a story here now. The fans battered the MPs that much that when the club tried to get a meeting with the MPs, they turned it down and said they didn't dare because of the freedom of information by your newspaper, which is the Chronicle, and by your fans hammering the MPs. So they didn't dare have the meeting because that's how much impact the fans made. The fans should never underestimate. The greatest fans in the world, I don't say that, I'm not patronising anybody. When you stand there at places like Bilbao and Roma, and you stand in grounds in Barcelona, Rome, Man United, Rome, you do it. There's no better place. There's no better people to stand next to. But the problem is, we've had 18 months of apathy. We've had 18 months of false promises and false hope. And what we did at the point now, we're all tired. There's no one more tired than me. There's no one more tired. There's no one sicker than me. Just, I don't want to give up, and I won't give up. And tonight, I wanted to choose tonight just to say to you people, I believe that you have the opportunity to round up all these fans groups. I don't give a toss whether they get the 40% out of the trust or whether it comes out of, like Rob said earlier, my mate says to me, run a GoFundMe thing. But it needs an accountant and it needs legitimate people to run that and do it and collect it in. But I'll tell you something, if the takeover saw the buyers attached to it and then got the press that would bring, you'd get 100 grand in a week at the longest. It would, you're a tenner a man. You don't have to pay it. You're either in or out. You get 10,000 Newcastle fans in a crack mind. And the other thing I know is somebody mentioned Ant and Deck. I know people like that would support it. They would support it because they're as passionate for this to happen as you and me. They are just ordinary fans. They're just like us. And they would do as well. And I think you would get people put more than that in. No, I'd certainly put more than that in. And I know there's a lot more would. I know a lot of business people. When you're in the business community, you'll see donations going in of 10,000 and 20,000 going in. And before, you might get the money in a couple of days. And all that would do, people, would give you the greatest chance for the clock to stop moving. To get all them pointed and say, right, let's start this case. When that happens, Pete, you get something called directions hearing, and they say, right, we're going to run the case in 6 weeks' time, or 8 weeks' time, or 10 weeks' time, and they then say, and if it's a 10 weeks' time appointment, they will then probably give you a disclosure at 5 weeks. And I'll tell you what, you think you've seen squeaky asses, you watch the Premier League, and you watch the Big Six, you watch Behind Sports, if they get disclosure. Because the QCs I've spoken to said they couldn't get through disclosure. They know more than me, and they know the questions they'd ask, and they know the disclosure they would seek. I know the process because I did it. I did it myself, and I did it for 3 years. And it's feisty and it's aggressive. But I'm going to try and stop talking more because I see loads of good people on here. I see my pal Joe Walker's on there.
Loads of people asking.
A lad I grew up with Ian Cook. There's a lot of lads on here coming on. So I'll let you just fire your question. I'll try and answer them quicker. I'm in no hurry. So if we're here at midnight, we're here till midnight.
Okay, I'm going to start with the question first, Keith. And it's slightly off topic, right? But it's something I heard you mention on Steve's show. You've mentioned before that at least one other buyer has come to talk to you. Can you give us an exclusive on who that buyer was, or how long they've been in touch with you? That's something you can share.
You're going round some more readers up now. I'll tell you. Right. So what? Right. The person who got in touch with us was in February this year was John Texter. If you Google him, Textor, he's a wealthy guy. He owns a big section of Fubo TV in America, and he got in touch with us in early February. And I was on Twitter, and he came on and said, "Be careful what you wish for." And he was talking about Saudi ownership. So I took it offline. What I said was, I'm not going to talk you on Twitter in public with stupid, so what did you talk my flag? I didn't know who he was. I thought he was just an anti-Saudi, but he seemed to have a bit more about him. He's the guy who just bought 20% of Crystal Palace. It's very relevant, this, because the relevancy of this is he went to the club in early February. I've got the dates. I think it was 3rd of February. And he bid for the club. And he told me he bid 40 million less than the PIF bid. What surprised me was I thought PIF had an exclusive and was the only deal in town. And again, you've got to decide. I'm not here to make the rules or decide who tells you what. But he says that he put a bid in, and 3 days later, the person he was dealing with, who I know well, said that Mike Ashley hadn't and been able to sign it off. So what he did was he said to me to put 100 million non-returnable deposit into an escrow account. If somebody that I know checked him out and said he was worth about $750 million. His frustration was he couldn't get Newcastle fans to buy into what he was doing. He couldn't get any traction. And he said, if I'd known you earlier, you might have been able to help me. And I said, no, I don't think I would. I said, I'm just one fan. And how would I get somebody who's worth a quarter of what Mike Ashley's worth to win us over when Mike Ashley's already told us he hasn't got enough money to compete? I said, so for me, for one, I don't think you're the perfect match. And I said to him, you're a good bloke, and it's been good. I had a call with him the night before we went down to London for the protest, and obviously I was up at 4 o'clock to go down there, so you can imagine how much I need me sleep. And he rang us at midnight. At 1 o'clock we were still talking, because he's on the US times. And when that happened, he was buying 20% of Palace, but it was linked to a chunk of Benfica. The Benfica owner had just been arrested for fraud. The deal was scuppered, so he thought it might not go through. And he said, I might be interested in Newcastle again. So I told the club, I says, John Texas has been back on. They said, they were more or less surprised how I knew him. I said, I've been talking since February. And I was more or less like putting him off and telling him, you'll not get past this PIF deal. And our name is Newcastle Consortium Supporters Limited, so we only support this consortium. So I don't want to, it's not John Texter Limited, but amazingly, he's gone and bought 20% of Palace. And is it 90 million he's given for it? So that makes Palace worth 450 million. And Newcastle's going for, you try to buy Newcastle. Now, think about it, because whenever you buy a company, if you buy 20%, that's not worth as much as someone who's got 31%, he's trying to buy 20. If someone's got 31, he's trying to get 20. That's worth a hell of a lot more than the first 20%. So to me, he's overpaid for a club that has a ground at capacity 30,000. No brilliant, huge history. Not the fan base that we've got. Not anything. I mean, I'm not pompous, but I don't believe Crystal Palace in the same league as Newcastle. But neither though did I believe that Chelsea would have made a bigger objection to what the ASL did than what Newcastle would have. I can't believe that Chelsea had all those thousands of fans outside that ground. We never. I just thought that was a call I was going to get. You need to get up the ground because everybody's there. They're going to march down Barrack Road. They're going to march to the monument, and they're going to meet in Leazes Park. And there's going to be. I just thought Newcastle. There's one thing we do well. It's that because we're so vociferous and are so passionate about the club. But right now, I think it's advantage Premier League.
Do you think, Keith, that COVID played a part in Sunday? In the fact, let's say that fans have been in the stadium all of last season, and we were still waiting, as we are now, for a takeover. Do you think it's likely that there would have been more in the line of protest this Sunday?
I think it was a great
fact that we've not been in the ground and people just wanted to get back to football. Do you think that affected it?
That's a brilliant point. Probably, I think that's yes. I think COVID gives Steve Bruce a very, very easy journey that he never have got. And from he's on a charm offensive now, and good on him. You know what I mean? He's a lad who wants to keep his job, and he's going out on radio this week, and he was at the food bank last week, which I think is all good stuff. I think credit to him for doing it, but I think it might be too little, too late because he needs signings. That's what he needs. at least another 4 signings. You know, he needs legs in that midfield. If you go into that game, you know, like second week of September, in your middle of midfield, Shelby, Hendrick, forget it. Because I tell you what, they haven't got the legs for it no more. And I remember watching Peter Beasley when his legs started going, you could see it from a distance. Yeah, but Shelby, for whatever you think of him, you know, I think temperament and everything, he's got issues. But I just don't think that lad's got the legs anymore. And I think this whole Premier League, if you watch teams like Leeds, the one thing they are is up for it. They're up for it. And you know, I watched us get beat in the playoffs of Sunderland at home, and I just thought they were more up for it than us. They snapped at us more than we snapped at them. And that's why we lost it. But when I watched Leeds last season, they looked like a team that was on something. They looked as though they had something in the coffee that we didn't have in ours. And to me, that's about legs. And I think Willock fits that trip. But to be honest, say what you like, I think Sean Longstaff, with an arm round him, with proper coaching, has got more legs, Matty Longstaff, than John Joe Shelby. I think a couple of, you know, Hollywood balls, you know, in a game isn't enough. I think it's 90 minutes of dying. And to me, the legs I want is the bloke who, when they took the penalty on Sunday, ran from the centre circle and got the rebound. 10 players got beat by 3 of theirs. Yeah. Absolute dog shit. So that's what we need, and that's where we need to go. But it's a cracking point, Martin, that COVID has hammered a lot. But I think it's worried a lot of Newcastle fans about crowds, about jumping around, about lots of things. You know, I think they went Sunday, but I think those people were nervous to go to the protest in London for that reason. And people went to the protest and caught COVID. Christ me, mate, Johnny Allen, Johnny Justice, he's been really ill. It wasn't even catch it there, but COVID's evil. Mickey Edmondson nearly killed him. So it's had to have an effect. But I think for the purpose of this argument, Martin, we've got to respectfully say that we could do the necessary alongside of COVID.
Absolutely. The other, Daz, I know there is a load of questions. You want to, obviously, Rachel put a question up there, more a statement than a question, I think, Daz, that we were going to revert back to, which was, if you can find, because we are getting battered with questions. Yeah.
It was around the use of the funds in the pledge, and could it be used for other means? I guess that was the general gist of it.
Yeah. Again, I don't know anything about it. I'm not a member of the trust. And when it was first formed under NUFC and by Colin Whittle and the likes of Steve Isham, I was very active, and I used to print stuff for them free of charge and help them get cracking and help them, you know, at games where they were raising all this. When it was born, I was very much a part of it. But when it became a trust, and the suggestion was they were going to buy the club, even back then, I said, it's not happening, lads. And people have said to me, people think I'm successful enough to buy football clubs. I'm nowhere near. You know, I'm like, you know, having a few quid and being comfortable and you know, not needing to work isn't enough to buy a football club. Buying football, somebody just put on the screen there, John Texas worth 276 million. He's still a wealthy bloke, like, you know what I mean? But he probably puts him in more the PCP leagues, you know, like hundreds of millions. The Rubens made billions during COVID. They grew their empire by about 3 or 4 billion during COVID. That's how successful the Rubens are. The Rubens are worth about 70% of what Man City's worth. And I'm told they're worth about 140% of what Abramovich is worth. The Rubens are the second richest company in country, we understand. So them, and then when you've got PIF, worth, is it 18 or 20 times more than Man City? You're talking about ridiculous money. You've got a man there, Mike Ashley's, worth £3,000 million apparently, and he can't compete. So that's why I didn't go to Texter and say, I think you're the man, because he had 276 million. Recorded that thing there. I heard that with his money he's got in his companies, he's worth more. He's worth probably more, like $750 million. But I said to him, where will you get the money? And he said 100 million was his. He put 100 million in out of his business. I said, right, it's still another 140 million to go. He goes, yeah, we get a 40 million cheaper. I said, well, you're still one short. And he said, we'd raise that on the New York stock market. I said, oh, Christ, we've been this route before. We did this route when Keegan was around. floating the club, and it says Keegan said it was a nightmare to work in. And I believe everything that man tells us, Kevin Keegan. So the next thing you do is, I sent a text to, so you'll need another 350 million for the training ground and the update of the St James's. So where you're getting to rebuild the training ground, do that New York Stock Exchange. I say, okay, we'll need 300 million float for players over 3 seasons. Where will you get that from? Stock Exchange. Is what he was going to do is going to give the club back the Newcastle fans. So in other words, we're going to buy shares in. And that's and this ownership thing, this thing of ownership. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying a lot of them lads who's done that pledge have done a brilliant job. They've gone out and they've been articulate the way they put it over. They've done a great video and they've got a lot of money in. The worst thing that can ever happen is then people have raised a lot of money for charity. If it goes to another use, then great as well. So I think that's great news. But I think it's the ownership thing I don't get. So when they talk about owning some of it and doing this and that, if let's suppose they own 51%, then who's going to put the other 49 in? Because there's no businessman going to put 49% in to be told by fans what to do. and equally, there's nobody that's going to be a billionaire or worth 350 billion like PIF going to come along and let fans with 1% tell them what to do. You'll get a voice, and the sad thing is they already had a voice at the fans forum. They lost the voice by not playing ball, by not signing minutes off, I was told, from somebody in the club. So for me, I think a lot of these plans are very adventurous. I mean, I won't be around. I'll be some bloke in the back with a baseball cap on, just sat like that. I'll not be around when people are owning football clubs. But maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's because I'm older than you lot. So I'm looking thinking, well, what I want to do is I want to go and get a rich company who genuinely want to run my football club right now. I just want to compete, and I don't care if Martins wins the Euro lottery on Friday and you own 33%. I don't care if Sean owns 62%. I'm not bothered as long as you buy the right players, as long as you run the club. As long as I just want to see us compete again. I want the feeling when Keegan was here, when we used to walk around, where everybody's second favourite team, but we wore the shirt with pride. And in them days, Bobby Robson, Alex Ferguson once said to Bobby Robson about the barcodes. He says, when you walk onto that pitch and you look up and you see that mass of black and white, it wasn't behind the goal, it was the whole stadium, just black and white everywhere. And you get less and less and less of that now. And it's the heart. The heart's getting took out the club. We don't know what's coming next. But I'm sure when you put a cork in my mouth, they'll start talking about European football. And when you talk about clubs like PSG, 1 minute buying Messi and next minute looking at Ronaldo, you could just destroy this football game. And for me, before I leave this earth, I would like to see the likes of George Mitchell, Mitch's dad. I'd like to see him stand with Mitch at Wembley and win a trophy. It's not a lot to ask. It's not a lot to ask for Mitch and his dad to stand at the cup final. It's not a lot to ask, that me, Steve Hasty, see us win the league. Is that too much to ask? But
no, not at all.
But I tell you something, if it goes the way it's going and Qatar rule it, I will not win an egg cup. We'll not win anything. We'll not have the right to sign a player. Before long, we'll not have the right to stand together because they're making the rules.
This is the frustration, Heath, and I think it goes back to what you were saying. It's so frustrating. You look at the guy that you mentioned who's now sort of a part owner at Crystal Palace, and you look at his worth. I think it'd be really, really difficult now for fans to get invested in someone that isn't of a high percentage sort of value in terms of into the billions and billions, because we've got an opportunity to have an owner that could completely change this club. Like, it'll be unrecognizable in a matter of years if the PIF and the consortium came together. And I think convincing anyone else, to come in and take the club right now will be incredibly difficult. And I think there's probably a lot of potential owners out there that are wary of that, which is why they've not come forward, is because they know we are so heavily invested in a PIF takeover that they know that anyone else is just not going to match up to it. And this kind of leads into the point that you've just been talking about, in that you know, we've got a situation here where we've got a Qatari-owned PSG that have had the club for 10 years now and have effectively changed the face of that club. That PSG were on the verge of relegation. They nearly got relegated from Ligue 1 just before the Qataris came over and took them over. They were at the bottom of the barrel. They were pretty much around where we were, you know, fighting relegation every year. And look at how they've been revamped now. Not just on the playing field, but just in advertising. On the back, they've got, you know, the Jordan. I see kids in the schools and around the city that I live in, and they're not PSG fans, but they're all wearing PSG. They have literally cornered the market. You see it right there, you know, and there is an actual realistic potential that they could sign Cristiano Ronaldo as well, which has been well documented today. But it's just a case of, you know, what are your thoughts on this whole situation around PSG and their spending power? But more importantly, you know, from a point of view that, because I've got an opinion on this, and I'm interested to know your opinion, Keith, in terms of, you know, Nasser, their owner, who is now basically the head of the table at UEFA, and getting to make the big decisions. What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, in my opinion, I think he's, you know, in a not a great way for us, but in a great way for him. I think he's played a blinder.
I think he has, but you know, I'm one football fan, so I've got to. I think again, it might be the age thing where you don't let people shut you up. And if you think something, when you get people like me, you tend to say it rather than just think it. And I think it stinks. I think the whole thing. I think football stinks at the minute. And if this takeover fails, if it doesn't happen, I don't think I'll go anymore. I think I'll just stop putting the football on the telly. I think it'll just be an era of my life that was all of my life that I had to just accept. It'd gone. It'd be a bit like I guess you see some people. I mean, Christ, look at the likes of. Think of footballers who apparently couldn't live without the game. You know what I mean? And couldn't live and not being a footballer. And think of the mental health impact on people who could never become accustomed to not being a footballer. And to me, I think our fans would have to get used to the fact that if you can't compete, and if people have illegally robbed you, you know, would you ever go in a shop that sacked your mother? You just out of principle you wouldn't go in. And if somebody turns around and says, like, you know, that this you're not going to compete, and when you look at that picture, it's vulgar. You know, to see Messi and Ronaldo and them all stood in that shirt, and then they lobby 6 clubs in England to say don't take the Newcastle takeover and don't let Saudis. You know, you understand the word news. You know, under Saudi control. God Almighty. And their control, for me, it appears UEFA, FIFA, the ESL, the ECA, the Premier League. You know, it sounds like they are the financial controllers of the Premier League. Apparently, the bosses, they're the biggest contributors of money to the Premier League. Yeah. So I
think it's all interlinked. I think. Do you know what I mean? Like when I look at it, and I'm not, you know, I'm not educated in any of that. To be fair to Steve Hasty, I texted him pre-Christmas, and I said, I know you're, you know, very, very well educated. You read a load of books. I'm looking for a couple of books to read. And he put me onto a book about FIFA and about you know, how the World Cup was set up and all this other stuff. And it's just, I read the book pre-Christmas and I read it again post-Christmas. And there is just so much in it around how deals were done, how the chairman of FIFA at the time was involved in certain things and in certain commercial deals. And that was back in the 70s and the 80s. So I've got no doubts that as it's gone further on, I mean, I just, for the life of me, in a very simplistic way, and maybe I'm wrong, how the guy at the top of a country that also is embedded within UEFA and is also the owner of PSG, who also has links to Man City, how is that? How the hell can that be right? I know, and I'm a very, very simple person. That to me does not sit. I think that's why I understand why they don't want the PIF piece, because they don't want another horse at the trough.
No,
they don't want another PSG.
PIF is smashing to bits. There's one thing you said I've got to pull you on there, man. You said about Steve Issy. I went to his house to get some books. Now I went into his library. There was only 5 books in his library, and three of them weren't coloured in either. So he's not as clever as you say. So don't big him up on here, because I'll have to, like, usually they start sitting me underneath.
You'll have to cut them off on Friday.
No, he hides it well.
They did say something else, which I'd like to get your opinion on. We had Mitch and Hasty on this show, and one of the things that we talked about, one of the other reasons for the Premier League doing what they're doing, and you made a good point about Bird and Bird, the litigation and delay. One of the things that Mitch said was, one of the biggest problems that the Premier League have got now with this takeover in particular is it smashes up their rule book and the face of ownership as a whole. And effectively, it's the Bosman equivalent of a rule change in ownership of a Premier League club. So I'd just be interested to get your view on that. Do you think it's similar? Do you think, obviously, that it would appear to be one of the Premier League's biggest problems is that they just don't know how to deal with this ownership level? So is that, do you agree with Mitch and Hasty? Do you think that this is something as big as a Bosman change?
I agree with them fully. And when we talk. I mean, I spoke to Steve Hasty twice a day. I'll talk to Mitch via WhatsApp regularly. Stu Penman, Steve Wraith, Liam, that, like, and the reason I talk to them is because if they don't know, they don't guess. So they just tell you it as it is, and they have your back. They're there for the same. We all want to take over, and plus they're well connected. So when they talk about the Bosman, I didn't think there was any exaggeration at all. I massively agree with that. There's something else which touches on the point you made. Is I was told by a guy that studies this that the ODT in its current guise doesn't cater to make this decision, and that whilst they will decide separation at the arbitration when it comes, you'll find that the ODT will be challenged because it doesn't give the power to do some of the things they've done with it. They've used it beyond its remit. So I think this will change. But my words, the next thing they'll do, they'll just change the whole ODT to stop us going in. That's what's coming. And I think they'll probably use Tracy Crouch with this fans review they're doing. But it's quite staggering. It's amazing when you look back. A year ago, last week, I wrote to Richard Masters and told him that who was stopping the takeover of Newcastle. And I said it'll be proven. One day it'll be proven, and that's the 6 clubs, and they run a cartel. And then we sit one day, and then they said, "Have you heard about the ESL?" And the whole of football collapsed. Boris Johnson's on the telly calling it a cartel. And you think to yourself, if you predict that in writing to that man on August the 5th last year, it should count for something. But then I wrote to Boris Johnson the 27th of December, and I told him, I says, "Boris, there's a cartel taking place in England, and you need to do something about it." And I said, please don't do what I know you're going to do. So on the 27th of December, I wrote to him and said, you're going to get together and you're going to nominate a girl called Tracy Crouch. I told her where she was MP at. You're then going to go and get the FSA to do a fans-led review. The FSA are funded by the Premier League. That's who pays their wages. And they're going to investigate the Premier League. And that's what you're going to do. And the results you're going to come up with at the end of the review has already been decided. And one of those results is you're going to reduce the Premier League from 20 clubs to 18. You're going to scrap the Charity League and you're going to scrap the League Cup. Now, I told Boris Johnson on the 27th December in a recorded delivery letter and electronically. And then he did it. He announced, we're going to do a fans-led review. It was about March, April. Tracy Crouch, we're going to give her the job. Hold on a minute, I told him on the 27th December. Why does a bloke from Durham tell him what he's going to do 3 or 4 months before he's doing it? Do you know what the answer to that is? Because it's all bent. It's all corrupt. It's all pre-organised. if you were investigating the Premier League, would you get someone who they're paying to do it?
No.
Well, that's it. The FSA are funded by the Premier League, and they're doing the investigation. That's what happens in English football, and that's why for me, our fans need to stop fighting, get together, and you know, I saw something last week. Well, I saw something last week where a reporter did a report, a top sports reporter for a national newspaper, who has a habit of just winding people up. That's what he likes to do. And he wrote to somebody in the last month, and I saw it with my own eyes, and it said, "I've suffered terribly on social media for the last 18 months, and it's all down to Keith." And 18 months ago, I didn't exist. I didn't appear, right, till about October. So I haven't been around a year yet. But 18 months ago, I was making his life hell. So so what you need to do is you put all that crap aside. And if I antagonise him, and I'm not join, you do it. Because I'm saying to you, I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how the legals. But there's enough people, you need to bury all the hatchets and get the Steve Hasties and get all them people. Get all these fanzines, all these groups, all these flags, everybody needs to get there, and they need to bury the egos, and they need to say, right, what we're going to do is we're going to come together, and we're going to do two things. We're going to raise the funds to join in action to give this whole exercise its push over the line to get this takeover, to change the face of Newcastle forever. And we're going to do a protest, a national protest, and we're going to start with a march on that day, with an issue at Man United, with press. We're going to buy adverts. We're going to do national campaign. We're going to show that we've got more fans than Chelsea had when they got national television. And you know when that ran, it ran on Sky TV, and every time you put Sky on, it was there. Where was Newcastle's, or where is Newcastle's? Well, it's there, and I know the heart is in the fans to do it. Let's do it. Let's just all do it, because I don't want to. It has to be done orderly, but people are going on saying, when people say to me, Ashley out, I just think they've lost it, man.
Keith, I have a question for you, and it's one that we came across on Twitter today, and we said that we'd bring up, and people in the chat, a few people have asked this, but I just extracted it today. It's, I suppose, can you confirm that the PIF are still there? Like Amanda confirmed it with Simon Jordan, but that was a few weeks ago. Can you confirm that they're still around?
Right. I'll give you the absolute answer to that. When Simon Jordan pushed Amanda, you heard she didn't want to answer the question.
Yeah.
And he went on and on and on. She said, how do they? Which is easy for him to do. I mean, if he knew everything about football clubs, he wouldn't have bought one as small as Crystal Palace, and he'd still own it. But if he earns his living on the radio, so what he should do is have more respect for people like Amanda. The week before, he was slated there. And you know, he's talking the kind of things that you wouldn't call anybody's wife, but he's just being an asshole of himself. So Simon Jordan just used his 2 minutes of fame to have a pop at her, and I thought it was bullying. I was pleased when Steve Wraith went on a few days later and had a pop back at him, because he didn't win that argument at all. Steve Wraith gave him every much as good as he gave, and when we were down in London, they came over to us and said, would you go on? I said, I'll go on with Simon Jordan, because you couldn't lose against him. How could you lose against him? I just said, I'm just a football fan. What's wrong with wanting better for your club? But Simon Jordan didn't get admission out of Amanda. He got Amanda saying, yes, they're still there, to get rid of him. But I then went and spoke to the club, and I said to the club, there is a fear that PIF have walked. And I said to the club, and I'm not talking China level, I'm talking higher. And I said to them, do you think PIF is still there? And they said, Keith, we talk to the PIF probably at least every fortnight, maybe it's once a week, but we don't talk about the football club. They're dealing with PIF on other deals. That's a huge retail consortium of businesses. You know, Fraser's Group and Sports Direct are enormous concerns. So what they're doing is they're talking to PIF because they want to break in the Middle East. And that's why Mike Ashley wants to sell the club to them, because there's so much more deals to be done. So if he could do it, he would. However, he said, PIF won't tell you that they're still waiting to buy Newcastle. That hasn't been done. So when somebody come on today, one of these in the no camp said, oh, they are still there and they've still agreed. What a load. Honestly, where do they make that up from? And say that with a straight face. It's absolute, it's donkey crap. You know, they haven't been told that at all. And the club haven't been told that. The buyers haven't been told that. That's just 100% made up. But the club said they're probably taught to pay for the minute more than PCP do because they have reason to own other business. But when Texter phoned us, he rang us before we went to Rotherham to say he had a good source. He named the source, a guy called Timer. He named the companies, the people involved with. And he said to us, he says, Keith, they told him about 70% certain that PIF weren't in for Newcastle anymore. They were actually looking, in his words, at Real Madrid, Barcelona, and possibly into Milan. That was what he said. And I said, well, you would say that because you want to buy Newcastle again. So I think he was trying to tell us that the PIF thing was off. And I said to him, I don't think in an organisation as big as that you would know whether they were in or out. The other thing I'll say to you is, when we did our Walid show the other week, PIF watched that show. So PIF watched that show every week. So I think there is an interest. I don't think they'll wait forever. I think if Newcastle United as a football club run a cat case on their own, I think there's every chance, if they do, that it will be appealed because there's only one group running it. I think if the buyers and the fans got involved, I don't think the appeal would work. I don't think there'd be an appeal against the fans. They have nothing to appeal against. So I don't think they'll be able to appeal against the fans. I don't think, this is my understanding talking to legal people, I don't believe that the Premier League could run a jurisdiction case against the fans. I don't think they could run a jurisdiction case against the buyers. I think they run it against the football club because the football club should be abiding by the Premier League rules of running stuff through arbitration. That's what it's all about, in my opinion. So, go back, right, there's something else I want to say. Steve Hasty put a point on screen which is very relevant. He said, if John Texter bought the club, he would do a Man United. He'd have his money out as soon as he floated it, and the debt would be settled. Steve Hasty is right on that point because he's brought it up. I wanted to raise it with you because you obviously rate the lad, and he's put a really valid point. Is you have to be careful what you wish for. John Texter, from likes of me and you, is a very wealthy guy, and he's a smashing fella as well. Lovely guy to talk to. I've got a lot of good conversation, contact with him, but he's not right for Newcastle. Newcastle's in a bit of a war zone at the minute, and if Newcastle didn't have PIF, they need something majorly big like that. And I think after Dennis Wise lost us the Man City deal because they came to us before Man City, and when if PIF were lost by the cartel, I don't think Newcastle would get a third mega big deal. I think this is, it's like lightning strike twice in one place. I think we need this deal. And the good thing is tonight I've been on here, it's been so healthy because, I said to you earlier, Rob Bailey put on, he said, run a GoFunded account. And how many people's been on here tonight say, I'm in. That's Newcastle fans for you. That's the fans I've been brought up with. And you know that they do it. You know that we'll fight if we've got to fight. And if there's a way. And I don't mind joining a panel of people who are going to do it. You know what I mean? But what somebody said there, Steve Hasty.
Hasty says, you didn't do those books. When we were talking about books, he said, you didn't do the colouring in because you didn't bring your extra white crayons.
There's me nana's look-alike going again. It's a great story. I just tell you a story, I'm not sure, but came out to the Irish Centre with him on Sunday. And I was walking across the street with Peter Baker, and this girl comes, she says, oh my God, NCSL. And I'm like, oh shit. So she gives a big cuddle and got a photograph. She's from Oldham, I think, Oldham in Lancashire. Lovely lass. And she was there with those men come up. She was like, oh my God. And she was getting photographs and all these. She said, oh, I can't believe I'm seeing it. I was thinking, oh my, it's embarrassing. I said, I'm going for a Chinese takeaway now. And I said, but before you go, I said, what you got to do? And this was 7:15. I said, before you go, I says, go in that Irish centre there, go down the back, and you'll see the hasty sat with these long dreadlocks of grey at the back wall. Make sure you go and get in bed. I got a notice the next day. He told us I didn't have a dad. And he says, I never got out of there at 10:10. She had to sign an autograph. Yes, he was getting for it, honestly. He says he never got his tea. He never got his he missed his tea and he missed his bus home.
Class.
So
all right, what we're gonna do, Keith, is because we've had you for an hour and a half and we've been blessed to have you for that. It is, and it's, you know what, it flies through, and I'm sure we've had a heap of people. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick wrap up and then we'll call it an evening. So I think from my perspective, it's been great to have you on. Absolutely massive, and it was great when I got the text from you after I kind of had chased you. So from my perspective, I'd like to really thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure for an hour and a half listening to you, and it's not often, to be fair, that somebody shuts me up. So I've really enjoyed
agree with that.
Listening to it. We've had a rake of people watching. I'm sure we'll get a little more, but from my perspective, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on and a real pleasure meeting you. I'm obviously not living over there. We don't get to go to the match, but hopefully one day I will catch you for a beer, and this will all be a distant memory, and we'll be flying high again. Pete,
where are you from? Whereabouts are you over there?
I'm from Washington originally, but I'm living in Dublin, just outside of Dublin now. Been over here about 22 years.
I just had a flight. I was supposed to be Dublin last week, so I do get over there. I love it over there.
When you're over, drop me a text.
I'll definitely meet you.
Yeah, make a point.
The price of it, you can get the first one.
I'll take you somewhere where it's not so pricey.
Before I go, I just want to say thanks to everybody for it's humbling how much, how good the fans are, and what's upsetting for me is the thought of considering failure, because I don't like failure. I've in my life, I've been lucky, and I've had what I wanted, and I've achieved what I wanted to achieve, and I just wanted to do this. I wanted to like have a farewell, a swan song, and I was writing a book, and the only thing it didn't have was an ending, and things changed a year ago because death threats, and when you haven't had two of them, I put down as titter twits, and I just said I told them that I'll come after them and I'll get them, but one of them was feisty as and police involved in everything, and it was with burner phones and you name it, and it all stacked up. It was that was thing, and it makes you think, what the hell are you doing? You know what I mean? And my ex-missus said to me, "What have you got us into here?" You know what I mean? And we had people at the house. I had people with cameras at the house. I had people listening gear, and you name it, and then lots of threats and threatening to get acid in my face and threatening to get stabbed and all this, and I walked the street to Durham because they told us what day I was going to get Durham, and then another time it was Newcastle. The night I went and did the collection at the food bank, I was told that if next time you come to Newcastle, we're going to sort you out. I said, well, all right, I'll be in Newcastle tomorrow night on my own, and I stood and collected the food bank tin for hours. You know what I mean? And it has changed me because someone said, would you do it again? I said, I'd always would do it the first time because it was my life. Newcastle, it was a chance to make a difference. Would I do it again knowing what I know now? Would I yell? Would I shout? Who would want all this dog crap in their life and idiots coming on the phone? It could be 11-year-old, or there could be, there could be like kiddie fiddlers. It could be anything pestering me and telling me what's the matter with us and telling me that, you've never had anybody trying to buy the club contacting you. That doesn't stack up. I've just told you it was. I'll show you documents. But everything I've done, I've saved as documents. And everything I've got, I've run through Liam Kennedy, who put in the book at the end. But the evidence is 90 gigabyte. Today, people's asking us, can I put that online? Do you know what I mean? To put 90 gigabyte online. It's hard putting 90 meg online. Never mind gig. Yeah. And it's things. So my point is, I want to say is thanks to everybody who's kept us going. Thanks for the pal there, Ian Cook, just saying stick with the party lad. I grew up with him. I went to my first game to them. You know what I mean? For years we had season tickets together, and he's saying stick with it. But it's getting harder, Cookie, because it's getting harder some of the fans have got to come forward now. Some of the fans have got to say, look, I'm up for this, to protest, to raise the money and to do it. But I think to Peter, to all you three lads, if you can get the fans to put action on the court case before that September hearing, if you can get the buys to do it, I think you kick the shit out of them. I think they will settle this case. But everybody who said all the kind words, thanks. I do everything I can, and I work as hard as I can until it's over the line. But if I walk away, it's because it's dead. Don't criticise for that, because it's been the hardest year of my life.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it. The love. There's a heap of comments coming through there. Yeah. The love and the best wishes from everybody is absolutely massive coming through, and I'm sure you'll get a chance. So, look, we as a group, we've watched you since you've been starting to do this.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed some of the tweets when you have been getting trolled and you've been firing back, because I think you've every fucking right to fire back, in my opinion. So I say good on you. And we will continue to support you. And yeah, look, there are hundreds of people on here. We've had, upwards of 400 watching tonight.
Really?
Live. It's the biggest watch we've had.
Oh, definitely.
The amount of people on this that are saying, let's get this GoFundMe up, everything else. We obviously have had George on, Geordie2302, who's part of NUFC Protest. I know they've got stuff going on the back. We've got some contacts. So look, maybe there are options there to get this going. I'd certainly put some money in it. I'm sure Pete would. I'm sure Daz would. Yeah. And look, let's see what we can be doing.
If it happens, I'm in. And if we do it, I'll pull everybody into it. And if there's people there, what we need to do is we need to see fans driving it. We need to see somebody in charge of collections, somebody in charge of press, somebody in charge of flags, somebody in charge of venue, somebody in charge of liaison with the police. And we know how to do it. I've run companies with hundreds of staff, and I've worked in the States and worked over here and built up big operations. And there's a lot of people in our fan base, that really do know the stuff. There's a lot of resource. Steve Hastie's got a lot more business acumen than he thinks. Steve Ray has 40,000 followers. You know what I mean? Mitch has got people in Dubai that want to get involved, that want to do it. Stu Penman. It goes on and on and on. If you look at them people, but there's a lot of business people that come to me every week. I'll tell you one quick before I go. When I was doing this, Robert O'Donoghue, he works in something called Brick Court Chambers, and one of our critics, one of our legal lawyer critics, said they are the best competition practice in the country. And I thought, oh, good that I picked the right one. And the club use another QC, Danny Jarrett, out the same practice. When I start this up, I got a call from Robert and said, just so you know, Keith, there's a QC works in this practice. He was a season ticket holder at Newcastle United. Told us his name. And he said, he's a top QC, but he doesn't do competition. But he says, he will work for you free of charge if you run this action yourself. He'll work for you. Can you imagine that, working in the background? If you've got top QC working for you, collecting you, helping you put the documents together, imagine if you ran a fans action and he helped that. But that's the kind of people we've got. I know there's lawyers who come forward and help us. But it's what it is. It needs, a lot of people say, I want to do this now, do that. Then they all argue. And even when they did the protest in London, there was about 60 people putting input into that. And they were talking about, they spent 2 days deciding what we're going to put on the plane, and it didn't fly. And that's where the problem is. You've got to get a group of people who know what to do, and you've got to point and say, Martin, you're in charge of venues. Pete, you're in charge of funds. Sean, and you've got to know, and you've got to be empowered to do it. Otherwise, you get nothing done. And that's why NCSL did so much, because I didn't have to go and ask somebody for permission. When Gordon dropped out 6 months ago, it was just me.
Yeah. No, Keith, I just want to say thanks for coming on as well. Great interaction with you today during the day. Just want to say to people as well, apologies, there are so many comments and so many questions coming at me. I have to watch this back to actually listen to what Keith said. But I just want to also say thanks to everyone, and please hit that subscribe button down the bottom right hand corner, and that would greatly help us. And also just a quick mention to our sponsor. Martin, I'll hand that one over to you.
Yeah, Centre Rail, the only Bruce we like, over at Central Station. Obviously a fine ale and craft beer shop right in the heart of Newcastle Central Station, who kindly sponsor us. who we actually, I know we keep saying it, but we do need to organise some giveaways because Bruce has got some stuff stockpiled, so we do need to do that. But yeah, if you are around, in particular on match days, get into Central Station, tell Bruce we sent you, and he'll look after you. He's got some cracking drink in there, and he will look after you. So thanks to Centre Ale and Bruce and Ellie and all the people over there for looking after us and sponsoring us. We do appreciate that sponsorship. Daz?
Oh, I think it's sorry, Pete. Do you want to say something?
No, I was going to say. Obviously, I've had the pleasure of meeting Keith a couple of weeks ago, and you know what? His passion just runs through. You know what you guys see on this chat tonight from Keith, and the passion and the knowledge about everything that he's put in the last year. I saw that in the 45 minutes that I met him, and it just rains through. And we just need more people as passionate to come together. Exactly what Keith has said. You know, so any of the groups that are out there, whether it's, you know, Transparency Group, whether it's, you know, the Magpie Group, whatever groups are out there.
Get together.
Yeah. Hopefully they're listening to this tonight and listening to what Keith has said, because we've already got so many people on the chat that are willing to put themselves forward and put the money in and get things started. But we need, as Keith has said,
if it's a runner, we'll certainly, I think it's fair to say as a channel, we'll be involved. But you don't think the GoFundMe as a runner? Listen, Loaded Mag and Loaded HQ will be involved. Absolutely.
I've looked at right-hand page now on my screen. There's like Gary Milligan, who I know, Joe Walker. Gary's on the shows every week. Joe Walker, who's like been great to work with lately. Sean Parker, Steve Acey's on there. Gary Penn, like Stuart Penman. You've got like who's of people who can make things happen and get things done. All it needs now is a decision to say, you know what it is, lads, we don't want to see it die. We want to get this over the line. And then there'll be some persuasion. It'll need people from the Matters crowd to talk the buys and see if we get them to do their bit. But I believe if the fans attach themselves to the club action alone, you would stop it getting thrown out or appealed for another year. And I think if you could do that, I think that in September they wouldn't be able to appeal against the fans. I'll have to check it out. I'll speak to QC, this week if you want us to speak tomorrow. And if it doesn't get chucked out and it runs from September onwards, I think it's advantageous again. I really think the advantage goes back. And then if you see me next week, say, do you think it will win? I'll say, yeah, I think we'll get the takeover again.
All right, let's see where we get to. Plenty of people talking about it.
Keith. We'd love to have you back on, Keith, at some point, maybe after we know where our sort of lies in September, and talk about it a little bit more. I know obviously you're with Steve every week, but it'd be great
if you look and get people together to make this happen. So the purpose of this show tonight, I just wanted to offload. I wanted to say that people keep asking me why I'm losing a bit of. I'm not losing anything. I'm just a realist. I see it, and I talk to the club, and when I talk to the club, I see that my contact talks is straight, and like I'm not going to sit there and throw things around. I talk at the highest level, and the contact I get is respectful, but it's not as buzzing this month as it was 2 or 3 months ago. And to me, I don't think people realise when I first went to the club, they didn't understand the competition action. They said, and I did most of the talk, and then I brought O'Donoghue in, and he persuaded them what it would give, and their QC said, I think it's right. I think we should. So for me now, I think it's back to that. We've got a QC that's already loaded up with information. He can run. Robert O'Donoghue would run a case on behalf of the fans very quickly. He just needs paying. Sean's laughing up there.
There's definitely loads of people interested.
Yeah.
The comments are still going mental at the back.
Let's get all them people together. Paula from Oldham, Steve Acey. Paula from Oldham, that was the woman who called him.
That's us laughing.
Paula from Oldham wants to be the secretary.
Yes, he's looking at. All right. We will call it an evening there. Keith, listen, once again, mate, thanks very, very much for coming on. We will get you on again. You are a genuine hero, and I think I did see one comment there from someone that said, do you know what? If nothing else comes from it, Keith, if nothing else, you've done more than any fucker else. And I think there is not a truer comment out there. So,
it means
sir,
everything. I'll come back on.
We applaud you.
I'll come back on as soon as you get a movement going. Because I think this show could instigate it. Maybe it's by me coming on with you lot. It could be the instigation of something that stops people saying, because the minute we shoot ourselves saying we're not even interested, the people criticising the fans. But I think we could do something.
All right, let's see where it goes. We're certainly getting people bouncing questions.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Keith. Thanks for coming. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Take care.
Talk to you again soon.
Thanks everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good luck.
Thanks, bye bye. Bye bye.